I started in 1970. I started working for Firestone. It was the most convenient job to have. I went to college at Bradley University in Peoria, and this was only 40 miles away, so it was a good small change for me. I also got married in 1970, and somehow I stayed 40 years with Firestone. My first, till 1986, most of the years were spent in the tire company, the tire portion of the company, and after that I came to the fibers and textiles in 1986. It was a big change for us, for my family and me, coming over here. The atmosphere was so different in this Firestone mill as opposed to the other Firestone plants we had been. I'll give you a little reference point on that in just a minute. Especially for my children, they asked us that there used to be all kinds of family picnics and other things going on over here. I came here as a position was manufacturing engineering manager, which was in charge of all the technical stuff for the mill. Eventually, it led to me becoming a plant manager, and then from there, the president of the company. But as a manufacturing engineering manager, we went to this picnic, and we realized there was everyone from the janitors to the presidents were in these picnics, and all their children were over here. And they had some of these old-style games, such as greasing a pole, and the kids climbing on the pole to try to get 20 bucks or chasing a pig. And my kids saw that, and they said, "Oh my God, we have gone somewhere else. We had never experienced this sort of a thing." They said, "Do we need to do this all the time, Dad?" But that was the atmosphere over here. It was like a big family. After I arrived over here in 1986, as I said, I was the manufacturing engineering manager. And one of the assignments that I was given was that this plant was not competitive. The issue was not with the people. The issue was with our equipment and the location. This location was not suitable for a modern manufacturing plant. But given the fact that there was a big emphasis at that time of doing things a little faster, a little more efficiently, and so forth, we realized that eventually the decision has to be made to move out of this building. But moving out of this building and getting like $30 million for a new building, that was not that easy a task. But in the meantime, we were still asked to start moving and changing things over here. That made a considerable problem for the folks that had been working the same way for the longest time. And when we talked about the family environment and so forth, that sort of conflicted with that environment. But despite all that, I still to date, when I go out and I run into people that were working here in 1980s, and we hug each other, we are still like a family. When I came over here, my first reaction was that you're going to go deaf after a while. There was so much noise in the mill, and you had to keep your earplugs on all the time. And people learned to use the sign language pretty much, because you can't hear each other from a distance. The farthest you can be away is about 2 to 3 feet if you want to talk to somebody. That was the first reaction. There was a lot of equipment that was running. The ring twisters, as the people in textile know, that takes the yarn and twists it, or the looms that run, those are extremely noisy things. My office was about, you had to pass through the main mill and through the loom area, and on the back side of the building, before you got out of the back of it, was my office when I came over here. And once I became the president of the company, my offices were in the front outside of this mill. I missed the mill at that time, because that was 1992, towards the later part of 92. And I had been here for 6 years, and I realized that there was a therapeutic value of standing on these floors when the equipment was running. It improved your it gave you like a massage and made you feel so much better. You can't do the job unless you're out on the floor in a manufacturing mill. My job was not at sales and other things at that time. My job was to make sure that we are the most efficient manufacturer that we possibly can in this location. And the only way you can do that is to go out, talk to the folks, see what they have to say, and you go from there and make the changes. As I mentioned earlier on, this was a totally different environment than what I was used to. I had come from a plant in Bloomington, Illinois, which was a tire plant. Then I had gone to Albany, Georgia, and another tire plant. And they were plants with like, the Albany plant had about 2,500 employees. It was an absolutely management versus employees sort of an environment. Over here, we had an environment of everybody in the same boat. We are all going to have to improve, and we all have to improve together. The folks over here were quite used to being treated more like a family. And it was a change actually for me too, but coming from a totally unionized environment to a non-union environment. And even after we got the union over here, it doesn't make any difference. The folks are still the same folks. There are some political changes because of the unions. But as I mentioned to you, that I still go out, meet some of the folks that used to work in the 80s and so forth. And sometimes you don't remember the names because there used to be about 500-600 people at that time. But you can recognize those people and they recognize me. And it comes up, okay, who can come up with the name a little faster? Or I have to finally say, I forget it, just give me your name. But I know exactly what you used to do and where you were. And we talk about families, we talk about all kinds of other things. And it is really a big pleasure to talk to most of those folks. I had an opportunity. I became the president here in 1992, October. And I stayed till, my objective was to stay something till I was about 66. So I had 18 years of service in this position. Most people who would be more interested in trying to do something a little more, make a little more money, or go get some variety, would have moved out of here with the same company. I had an opportunity to either apply for them or to be considered for them, but I liked the place so much, I liked the relationship that we had with the folks so much, and I liked the town. I didn't want to move. So I stayed here for 18 years, which stopped me from getting promoted more in the corporation, but I was happy here. When I moved over here in '86, I learned the history the first day I walked in over here. And we waited in the morning to the office to start. You're new to the job, so you come in a little early before some of the other folks show up. And this lady showed up about exactly 8 o'clock, I think, it was on the dot. And she used to take the production reports and she'd take them from one office to the next office and give it to all the management people as to what the last 24 hours was all about. I introduced myself, she introduced herself, and she became my guide for what's been happening over here. And every morning she would come in 8 o'clock in the morning, exactly on the dot, and we talked for 15 minutes in addition to her giving me the reports. And I learned a lot from her. Or talk about all kinds of things. Talk about the folks over here, talk about she would give me her opinion of the management, for example. She will tell me about the previous managers. She would tell me what happened 20 years ago over here. She'd tell me about the town. And she'd tell me the history of the mill. And then once I started to find out, then I realized there are lots of other people with a lot of seniority over here that have been working here for 30 years and 40 years and so forth. And I would go find them out and find out, okay, tell me what's going on. Because unless you know where you're coming from, it's hard to change things where you are headed to. You're telling people go and change tomorrow morning, and they've been doing something for 40 years. They're not going to like it, and it's going to be very difficult. Now, how many mills or how many factories do you know that have carpenters? But of course, this mill is made with bricks and wood. And so we needed carpenters. In addition to that, for the mill village all around over here, those houses were maintained by Firestone. There were 650 homes. They all had to be maintained. We used to have a total of 23 carpenters who had the job of keeping the mill and the mill village all fixed up. Yes, you had to be part of the family, that you worked in here, or somebody here worked, even if they're not currently working, they worked before and they were given their house. And slowly over a period of time, Firestone owned all these houses. And over a period of time, they decided to get out of the business of housing. It was costing more and more money. And they decided they're going to keep selling these houses or giving them under certain conditions to some of the employees. I came here in 1986. And at that time, this used to be Firestone, and that was it. It was owned by Firestone, the company that was started in 1899. And in 1988, we were bought out by Bridgestone Corporation from Japan. And then it became Bridgestone Firestone Incorporated in the USA. Firestone had just been through some real tough, trying times in the late 80s, in the mid 80s, excuse me. And they were running short of money, and that prompted this discussion to try to put yourself up for sale, and Bridgestone was very interested in buying us. Bridgestone was originally started in Japan. It was after Firestone was started in the United States, and they used Firestone as the model, and that's why their name of stone, Bridgestone, Firestone. They took half the name from Firestone. They had been doing very well, and they believed in the fact that you have to have a lot better productivity, a lot better modern buildings, equipment, and other things in order to be successful around the world, because it was becoming more of a global economy, global company. And in order to compete, they were very receptive to what we need to do truly. And they had the money. So in 1992, we proposed to them that we need to move out of here. And they saw it and they said, yep, you're right. We need to do that. Let's go find a place and build yourself another building that would be a lot more efficient. So we picked a place. We didn't want to move too far away from here. We had lots of people that would have lost their jobs totally. At least when we moved to Kings Mountain, we needed far fewer people, but the people that wanted to move had an opportunity to move over there. They're still going to live in the same place where they used to live. They just work only 10 miles away. And over a period of time, and as I say, Firestone, if we go back to the early 80s and so forth, we used to have plants in Bennettsville, South Carolina. We had plants in Bowling Green, Kentucky. We had plant in Hopewell, Virginia. And we had two plants in Canada and the plant over here in Gastonia. And in 1995, by that time, we had closed down Bennettsville, we had closed down Bowling Green, and we had sold the plant in Hopewell, Virginia. And as we talk right now, in 2010, those two plants in Canada are currently being shut down. So the only facility left is in Kings Mountain, the new facility that we built, which has been expanded now 3 or 4 times. It's currently under another expansion. But they're basically making as much as all these other facilities used to make, and at a much more efficient level. Absolutely. There was a lot of concern on the part of not only the hourly employees, the factory employees, but the supervisors and the other managers, because it meant, and we had told everyone Folks, this is how the new facility is going to be run. This is your new role. This is our new role. This is how we're going to do it. This is what we have to achieve. So everybody knew what the answer was supposed to be, and they had an option of whether they wanted to go or not. Considering the history of this mill, we thought it was essential that instead of demolishing this mill, we try to preserve it. But we wanted to preserve it and quickly turn it over to someone who is willing to spend the money and to make it like what it is today. I always want to keep this building and try to do something with this. Our corporate folks, because the liabilities involved in old buildings, wanted to demolish it, and Preservation North Carolina wanted to keep it going till they found somebody. It eventually took us over 15 years to get somebody to come and do something with this mill. This is a vision, this even surpasses my vision of what could be done with the mill.